we design and install and maintain audiovisual systems for corporate.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm the host, Todd Westra, and today we are covering one of the funner topics, I think, in growth and scaling, and that is, to what end are you growing and scaling? The reason I say that is because many people in their growth journey don't think about the end. They don't think about the exit. They don't think about where they're going to take the business before they're out of the picture. And I think that's something that's crazy not to think about. Today's guest, we're hitting just at the right time. This is someone who grew and scaled a business for about a decade and then was able to transition his business as an acquisition into a much bigger company and assumed a leadership role in the new organization. It's a very fun conversation, very fun topic. And I think for those of you who are growing and scaling your business, it's about time to think about where is the end for you in that business. It may be your baby, it may not be, it may be just a vehicle you're using for a couple of years before you upgrade. But knowing your exit and that making that transition is a big step. Today's interview, we're talking to someone who's recently done that and is doing that. And it's a great experience, a great journey. I hope you enjoy this interview and we'll catch you on the other side. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have our guest on because he's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the endings that come through your growth journey and where it leads into in terms of bigger plays. Tim, I'm so excited to have you on. Tell us who you are and what does your company do?
Yeah, I appreciate that. My name is Tim Albright. I am the CMO of CTI out of St. Louis. We're a national audiovisual integrator, contractor. We design and install and maintain audiovisual systems for corporate, for education, broadcast, any sort of gamut. If you see a projector or a video wall or a speaker, we can have a hand in that.
I love it. I love it. Now, audio video is a very broad sense of the word. I used to be in the audio video industry, but on the total opposite end of it, on the residential side.
Yeah.
Tell us what kind of problems you solve. Who are your clients? Give us some idea of what you do.
So a lot of them we can't say publicly. And I'm sure that you had a couple of those as well, right?
I did.
Where you're doing some pretty wicked stuff, and yeah, you can't say who you work for, right? But college and university is higher education is a broad term there, and that is 100% where a lot of our work is done, as well as corporate. We're based out of St. Louis.
Yeah.
So we have a number of Fortune 500 companies here, but we also have 33 other branches and offices throughout the U.S. So, Silicon Valley,
awesome.
we do a lot of work in. We Texas and the East Coast, up and down the Mississippi. We've got a number of installations brought from the broadcast and the sports and entertainment realm. The Predators, awesome. The Predators arena in Nashville. We just did an NCAA Division I video wall for a football
awesome.
stadium here in St. Louis. So yeah, if you've seen something that's like, oh my gosh, that is so cool, or you're in a classroom and there's a projector with a screen, right? That is 100%.
That's the spectrum.
That is the spectrum. Yeah.
I love it. Now, obviously, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of pieces and parts that you have to integrate with. And, as you're dealing with clients and as you're tell us about how you found your product, your client fit, because it is such a broad industry. How did you kind of niche down and get into the part where you actually started to take off and grow?
Well, the one thing that we did kind of early on was you figure kind of what you're good at, right? You mentioned the fact that you were in residential and CTI as a whole, we made that decision probably 25, 30 years ago. We're a 35-year-old company. That is not an area where we excel at, right? It's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different sales process, as you know. And so we were like, okay, corporate 100%. But where we really found our niche and found our rhythm is in the process, right? Especially these Fortune 500 and down to the Fortune 100 companies. They're technologists, right? They know what they like, they know what they want. They just don't have the folks to do it. So developing the process to give them the ability to connect with each other through technology and demonstrate that we understand that what we're doing from a project management and a procurement standpoint. So if you tell us we got 90 days, well, as long as the equipment comes in, and we can talk about all day long, supply chain, but as long as the product comes in when it's supposed to, then here's our process, and we're going to be there on time, on budget, or under time and under budget, right? So that really is the niche, is developing the process to get our customers up and running with as much uptime as possible when it comes to their communications platforms.
I love it. You bring up a point that I think is a huge piece of almost every business, regardless of the area that they are in. The processes and systems that you have to incorporate in your type of field is absolutely critical. You can't have one step coming ahead of the other, otherwise things just don't work. Can you talk to that a little bit?
A little bit, right? So understand, I'm in marketing, so I know what a Gantt chart looks like. Do not ask me to run one. That is not my area of expertise. But and if you don't know what a Gantt chart is, go Google it. They're fascinating. They're very pretty, right? They're very pretty.
There's a great YouTube video on it. I swear.
I'm certain there's thousands of them. But really what I'm talking about is you've got procurement coming in here. You've got boxes coming in, and you've got gear. You have software, firmware to update. And so as you're bringing this stuff in, you're like, okay, we have to be on site at this date because we have to be done by this date. Okay, so you back that off a little bit and say, okay, well, if we've got to be on site on this day, then it's going to take X amount of days or hours to build the racks, right? To test them out, to load the code and this, that, and the other. Okay, that's great. Typical lead time then, typical time it takes from the time we issue a PO or we order it from our vendors, it's going to take X amount of time to get here in St. Louis or wherever the job is. Okay, so you start backing that off, and it's a little bit like reductive math. It's like, okay, we have to get done over here. What are all the other pieces that have to happen before then? And it's that process, and it's that repeatable process that you're able to demonstrate time and time again with not just one customer, but several, that really kind of demonstrates your area of expertise where it comes to delivering that product. The one thing that we see is, and you probably experienced this too, your competitors, when you were in the residential side, y'all could pretty much get the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, there are some folks that were like, oh, in Boise, Idaho, we only have one dealer. That's fine, right?
Right.
For the most part, we can all kind of get basically the same stuff. It's that process. It's how we go into a customer. It's like, okay, what are you trying to solve here, right? What are you trying to do? And you start there and you go, okay, well, this is our typical process for this. If this works for you, if this connects with you, awesome, groovy. Like let's go to town. Let's make a marriage here. And if it doesn't, if our process doesn't work, or if that's just not how you do business, or how your process doesn't jive with us, okay, cool. Here's some folks that may very well work within your timelines or your processes too.
Totally. That's very well said, because you're right. There are limited products that you can implement in what you do, but it's how you do it, your process, the way you implement it, the way you execute it can be very different across the board of your competition. How do you, now that we kind of have an idea of what you do, talk to us about your growth journey, because you've been in business for a long time. The company that you're a part of now has been around for a longer time. How did this relationship all work out? I mean, you I'm inferring here there's been an acquisition here. Will you tell us about that journey of your business evolving, growing, and then ultimately led into where you are now?
Sure. So the business that I started was called Aviation, still is called Aviation, right? It's still in existence. And we were we're a media company, right? We developed content for the audiovisual industry, and primarily for end users, right? These are the people that are in the front lines, right? They're the technology managers, they're the IT managers that are in corporate, right? That are in higher education. And I did that for a number of years. We were rather successful at it, right? We weren't the best, we weren't the worst, we weren't number one, we weren't the last, right? And That focus on the end user got the attention of the owner of CTI, and it's, we developed a relationship, and one thing led to another, and he saw what we were doing and saying, well, that's something that I'd like my team to do as well, and talks were had, and at the end of 2020, it was rather an interesting year to be in broadcast and publication. So
be in anything.
Yeah, anything really. So it was a good move. Our entire team came over, so I was very happy about that.
Cool.
When you own your own business, there are certain struggles. There are certain stresses about paying other people's mortgages and putting food on other people's table that you're responsible for. And the fact that we were able to bring over our entire team was incredibly satisfying, and it made the decision really, really easy to come over and join.
Very cool. Now that you so you were operating from the premise of you were kind of the voice of the users of a lot of pieces of gear in the country. And then you were acquired by a group that, what was the strategic play there? Why would they want to make that part of their business?
Content, right? So
I love it.
I'm a big fan. There's a gentleman by the name of Marcus Sheridan who wrote a book 15 years ago, probably now, and I'll give you the synopsis. Marcus discovered by accident, by necessity, during the recession, the strength of content and the strength of telling customers and potential customers what it is that they need to know as they're researching the product. He happened to own a swimming pool company, right?
Awesome.
And in the recession, nobody was putting in pools, at least not a lot of them.
True.
And so he's like, well, how do I get out? How do I get in front of the folks that are still doing that?
Yeah.
And he starts creating this content and starts answering questions, right? So
brilliant.
I've got a background in broadcast. I have a background in content. So that's kind of where AV sprung from, was my experience in the AV industry and my experience in broadcast. And the ownership of CTI was like, well, that makes sense, right? Creating content,
right,
and providing value to customers and potential customers. We want you to come over and do the same thing for us. So, AV Nation is over here. It still creates. It still is a broadcast media arm for the industry. As CMO of CTI, I now lead a great group of folks who also create content for that same audience. It's the makeup is a little bit different, right? The calls to action are a little bit different, right? From a marketing standpoint, but the content really is the same, because it as long as you're providing value, right, to the customers, you're not going to get all of them, right? Because they're not all gonna match your culture. They're not all going to match what you offer, quite frankly. But a lot of them will. And they may be in a position today that they work for company X, but they're still consuming your content and still getting value from you. But in a year or two, they might be over here at company Y, and those companies might might sink. So it's 100% a content and just providing value to clients.
Hey, this is Todd again. Thanks so much for enjoying this episode of the podcast. I am so glad you're here, and I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a program that we have assembled with a lot of our podcast guests and a lot of people who are listening to the show who are feeling the same way that they do. There's a recurring theme. You'll hear a lot of these founders talk about, I couldn't have done it without my team. I couldn't have done it without a support group of peers. I couldn't have done it without having someone to talk to that understood my feeling of isolation as an operator of my business. You see, you're not alone. It is hard running a business, and it's even harder when you know you can't express all your deepest concerns and frustrations with your executive team. It makes them nervous. It gets them scared. You don't want scared people on your executive team. So where do you turn? The Captain's Council is where you turn. The Captain's Council, it is an organization that we are put together with podcast guests, as well as people who are listening who are in the same boat. You see, peers are the only ones that can give you the type of empathy, the type of advice, that only a founder or operator know and understand. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com. I know you're going to love what you see there. We have put together an organizational structure that has small group settings, a global community of founders and operators, as well as monthly and quarterly in-person events. You're going to love what you see there. I can't wait for you to check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode. So on your growth journey, when did you recognize that what you were doing was having an impact? I mean, a lot of people listening to this, they are kind of in this stage of growth in their business where they've launched, they're kind of stabilized, they don't really know what to do next though. Yeah. When is content production a good move for them, in your opinion?
Till yesterday.
I love it.
I mean, yeah. Here's the thing. I have a dear friend. My oldest friend probably. He has an MSP, right? And I am continually after him to make content. We'll have coffee. We'll do whatever. We'll shoot in the breeze, and he'll say something, and he'll go on a 5-minute tangent on how this can save money and how this. And I'll look at him and I'll say, Michael, that's a blog post. Like, that's a video. that's something that you need other people to hear. I am not a decision maker. I'm your friend.
I love
other people need to hear that. If somebody's looking at you and going, I never knew that. Well, guess what? That's a blog post.
Share it.
Right? Share it. Absolutely. You are not going to make $10 billion off of a blog post, but you're going to impact somebody, right?
Right.
And not whether that person is the decision maker or they're an influencer to that decision, you're going to impact them in a way that will ultimately come back to your company. So yeah, yesterday is when you should have started it. And if yesterday is too far away, then today is really when you need to start it.
I love it. Now a lot of companies that are listening, they really don't have an end in sight. You start a business sometimes and you think, I'm gonna jump in the audio video industry because I love the sound of crisp, clear audio and seeing that display that's 100 feet by 50 feet. That's what's exciting to them. They don't see the end or any potential exit at the end of the day. What led you to believe that you had a potential exit or a way to transition into a type of role where you're in now?
Well, a little bit here. The exit that I got was not the one I saw, right? I really did envision doing, running AV Nation until I retired.
Awesome.
It was more opportunistic, and again, the pandemic did a lot of things, and it changes a lot of.
It changed a lot of things.
a lot of goals, right? And so it was opportunistic more than anything, and it was having a real good conversation with a dear friend who was the owner of CTI, and talking about really what that meant, right? Coming over and being acquired. But the ultimate goal was running it for another 10, 15, 20 years. And, exiting through, most likely a complete acquisition and then retiring. But you do have to have an exit. I mean, if you don't, I mean, dying with your boots on is fine, but it's not, I don't think that's a goal.
Totally agree. I would say that for those listening, be aware that there may be strategic acquisition plays. There is more exits than one.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
When you start a business, it could be the thing that you do till you die. It could be the thing you pass on to your kids. It could be the thing that you run for 3 years and you get to sell it. You know what I mean? How do you get that mindset, in your opinion, through to other founders who are just so one-dimensional in the way they think about their business?
Oh, good Lord. Well, you start asking about what are their dreams, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of start there because there are very few people in my life that I've met that, I'm going to work until I die. Right. That's just not, what was it? Monster.com a number of years ago, they ran those commercials of little kids going, I want to be a middle manager when I grow up. Well, nobody's going to say, I want to work until I'm 90. Right. When I grow up, you don't want to do that. No. So you start talking about their dreams. What do they want to do? Where do they want to go with their spouse when they do retire, right? Where do they want to be? And you start there and go, okay, a little bit. Actually, it's a little bit like a Gantt chart. Okay, you want to go over here? Well, then start backing up a bit and go, okay, do your kids like what you do? Right? Is it something that they're interested in? If it's not, don't force it. Right? That's a horrible plan.
That's a horrible
and
plan.
Go, okay, well, if they're not interested, and obviously if they're 10 or 12 years old, you have no idea, right? Because my kids have wanted to be everything from a marine biologist to an astronaut. So
right.
Then okay, you know what? Then what is a viable exit strategy? Is it selling to an investment firm, investment bank? In the AV industry, at least on the commercial side, there's a number of investment firms in investment banking that has gotten into this side of the industry, and that is certainly, if you are in this industry, that's certainly an option, right? Connect yourself with venture capital, and get involved in that, or you start networking, right? You know a lot of folks. I know a lot of folks. You start asking around. When you hit 50 or so, and you're, and you're like, okay, I've probably got 15 years left, maybe 10.
Right.
Who knows? Depends on how
What's
tired
the
you
plan?
are. You start networking, right? You start talking to other folks, and we've watched a lot of transitions in our industry over the last probably 15 years, where there are a couple that have transitioned well into second and third and fourth generations, certainly.
Right.
But the vast majority of them have been sold off to other folks that either get it, right? They see the value that you have, and then they say, okay, right, here's the exit strategy. Either it's all one lump sum, or it's, over the course of 10, 15 years.
Sure.
But you start with your team.
Now what in the process of growing and now acquisition and moving forward, what have you seen as kind of one of your biggest challenges? What's been the biggest slap in the face, I guess, that you've hit?
Meetings, but that's beside the point. Probably that's just the learning curve, right? When you are, we were a relatively small business, so there was a lot of hats, right? That you wore as an entrepreneur. And some of those hats get taken away, right? I no longer do, payroll. I no longer mess with the accounting, which is probably for the best, to be frank.
Right.
But it's the other hats as well, right? It's okay. You're now responsible for this, and we've got a good team at CTI from a marketing standpoint. We've got some that are remote, right? So that's new. So I've got folks that are, when we're headquartered in St. Louis, but I've got folks on our team that are in Detroit and folks that are in Arkansas and in Kansas City. So managing and working with that team remote. So it's a little bit of the unknown until it's presented itself to you and go, okay, here's a challenge, and kind of roll with it. At least if you're going to be successful, you do.
I love it. Now tell me, I love asking this question because, as a founder, it oftentimes feels really lonely. There's not a lot of people who understand the weight and the burden of what you're carrying and trying to grow a business. Who have you looked at? Are there people in your network that you have that have kind of been an inspiration to you, that have kept you going when you feel like, this just sucks?
Yeah. Well, one is my new boss, quite frankly.
Awesome.
John Laughlin, who's the owner of CTI. He was a great mentor, right? I knew him before I ever started working for him, and we would meet every 6 months or a year for lunch, and he'd ask, and I would kvetch about this problem or other, and ask how he did it and how he overcame it, and we would just converse. The other folks are, I mentioned my buddy Michael, who's an MSP here in St. Louis. He and I have both, at the time, had gone out on our own, and we both had similar struggles, right? And now I get to listen to him with some of the similar struggles that I had when I was a founder, and provide, help him, and also hear some of the newer struggles that he's going. So just you have to network, and you have to make yourself available, not only to give to other people, but also to be spoken to as well.
I love it. Well, where do you stay most active? Are you around on social media? Where do people want to follow? If they want to follow you, where do they find you?
I would say the best place is LinkedIn.
Cool.
I have made a career out of saying don't follow me on Twitter, but you can find me there. I am a big Chicago Bears fan, and so you will find me complaining about them in the fall. I'm a big St. Louis Blues fan, so you'll find me not necessarily complaining. Depends on the year.
Awesome.
But yeah, I would say
I love it. Well, that's awesome. Well, we'll put links to your social down below in the show notes. But listen, I appreciate where you come from, what you're doing now, and honestly, your whole journey is I think it's really telling for a lot of people, a lot of founders in that growth journey to think, okay, to what end am I doing this?
Yep.
Why am I doing this build right now, and where's it going to get me?
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for your time. I sure appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Hey, what did you think of that? I absolutely loved it. Really fun guy, really fun interview. Our post interview was even very interesting in terms of a little bit of share a story on that transition from being the owner founder into being the chief marketing officer. I love it because I'm a marketing guy, and I think that seeing his roles change and not carrying the weight of all his employees and their mortgages and their lifestyles and everything depending on you, it's a different role. It's a different position to be in. For those listening who are in the role of chief head officer of your business, please take it seriously. You are carrying the burden of all of your employees, all your staff, all your team. It's a heavy burden. It's a very heavy burden. Think of an exit that will benefit not only you, but everyone that you're carrying that burden for. For him, he transitioned his entire team over, which is awesome. For most people, it doesn't work out that way. But think of an exit that will give your team, your people, the people that you've grown to love, a place that's comfortable, a place that's going to work out for them afterwards. I love this story. I love this interview. This has been a really fun chance to kind of reflect on my own exit strategy and my current business model, where I want to take it, how I want to leave it. And all of you should be doing the same thing. Pass this interview on to those that need to hear it. It's a fun conversation, a fun interview. And like, subscribe, and do all those things that we need to grow the channel. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast.